Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show, we've got two political commentators. We've got Charlie Rowley and Fahima Mohammed. This week, much more controversy, guys, again, with the illegal migration problem we have in this country. Some people on the left call it irregular migration. I don't know why they call it that. But the hotels now, even in Canary Wharf, one of the richest, poshest districts in London, the financial centre, we've got the Britannia International Hotel. That was on lockdown 2 nights ago. I was there. Some of the police told me they didn't know what was happening, but I managed to get to the bottom of it with the local commander, who said it was in lockdown because they're preparing it for asylum seekers. Illegal migrants. We know who's coming. They're going to be busting. There was protesters outside. And again, Fahima, what is going on in this country? Should we be using these hotels to house illegal migrants?
Well, it's not the migrants that want to stay in these hotels. It's the government's backlog and the fact that there's 130,000 cases that still needs to be processed. And there's so much delay in immigration, in the justice system, even to give and make decisions. That's the main problem. The migrants want to come and they want to work. And whether you call them illegal or irregular, under the Refugee Convention, Article 31,
Fahima,
they can come in.
You just contradicted yourself there. Are they migrants or are they asylum seekers? Or are they migrants posing as asylum seekers to stop in this country?
Well, that's what the process is, a failure with regards to making sure that whichever route they take, they cannot distinguish between that. And that is the government's problem. And that is the processing problem. The migrants are coming and fleeing from a majority of distorted and really countries that, they feel that they are obviously needing more help, and that's what we are here for. And of course, there needs to be some sort of limitation. But at the same time, I think this kind of outrage is just outrageous because at the end of the day, it's not their fault that they are actually here in the hotels.
Of course it's their fault. They've gone on a dinghy and come here. It's their fault.
Because they are claiming asylum, and most of them are, 80% of them are actually processed as able to claim because they are not criminals. They are not doing things in a way which sees
talking about criminals, Charlie. What do you think?
Well, Fahima's outraged about the outrage, and I'm outraged about that.
And I'm outraged about Fahima's outrage.
Exactly. It's an outrage all round. Yeah. And of course, the hotel is a pull factor. If you can come into the UK illegally, you will get put up into a hotel, a 4-star, potentially 5-star hotel. You'll get £50 a week on the UK taxpayer. You'll get your medical bills, your dentist, your doctor's appointments. You'll be safe until you are processed. And that backlog of processing takes such a long time. You could be here for
here's the
years.
thing, Charlie, here's the thing. I keep challenging MPs of all political persuasions about this nonsense backlog argument. Clearing the backlog does not achieve anything at all. All it does is say to 80% of the people that's applying, yes, we'll take you out of that hotel and then put you into an HMO or housing on a residential street near you. And we've seen what's been happening with these HMOs and hotels, that is. We've seen alleged crimes and some of these asylum seekers actually convicted of some awful crimes. We are killing our society. We are giving it away. And we're turning some of our streets and some of our neighbourhoods into no-go areas.
I think that's right, and that's why there's so much tension now. Because, look, if you turn up on a dinghy, as many of these people do, and they are men of working and fighting age, they are not asylum seekers, they are economic migrants. Yeah. I can understand perfectly well why people want to come to the UK.
I can.
It's a great place to be. Yeah. It's not as great as it once was, I'm afraid to say, but there's a pull factor there, not least because of the hotels, not least because you can actually maybe go and work illegally. The point should be, if you get into the UK, if you can't tell us who you are, where you're coming from, what your name is, what your age is, then you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't even be processed or have a process waiting for you whilst you're staying in a hotel. You should be deported back to France.
Fahima, we see these gangs of youths in northern France fighting with the French police and the gendarmerie and throwing rocks. There's knife crimes. There's guns being fired off. And then 24 hours later, they're sat in a 4-star hotel in central London at the taxpayer's expense. Is there any wonder when they see their friends on TikTok and social media sat in these hotels that they want to get on these boats?
Well, the numbers are 1% and overall of crime between the migrants that are coming in. And there are definitely criminals that are just, isolated, which is being broadcasted mainly. And if you're going to do that and scaremonger that all of them are the same, then of course there's going to be so much of dissent against them. Now, in this country, we have a huge amount of crime, and it's not just with the migrants. It is generally, you have to go and look at the root cause of the problem. And I think, again, it is the government policy. We have laws, we have certain things that they are coming in here, and we can process and we can do certain things to limit that. But again, I see it as policies and legislation and a process that I think is at the top that needs to be counted and challenged, not the people that are coming in. And the reason why they cannot be arrested is because of the laws.
A little bit of common sense there, I think, coming for Hema. Some of these policies need to be challenged.
Well,
absolutely.
Well, the problem is that there's a pull factor and there's no deterrent. Why is there no deterrent? Because this Labour government scrapped it on day one, which was a Rwanda policy. People were cheering in Calais when Keir Starmer got elected because Rwanda was gone. They were saying, thank God for Keir Starmer. And that's why you still see the numbers increase month after month. Yeah. We're now approaching the summer. We're going to see many, many more people, I bet you, come over on those small boats.
Let me ask you a question, Charlie, and I'll ask Fahima the same question, because that's only fair. You see these, people describe them as young fighting-age males fleeing from persecution or whatever, but they're leaving their women and children behind. What kind of man does that?
Well, I rather suspect that their hope is that they will get asylum in the UK and they will then be able to bring families over. So I think it's
But if that country is so unsafe and they're at war and it's so dangerous, what sort of man would leave women and children behind?
And that's why the system, I think, is broken. And what I think you'll find is that those people that do get granted asylum, that 80% figure, it's easier just to process a claim to say, yep, okay, you meet a certain criteria, maybe because we don't know who you are and we don't know your background. Therefore, we're going to go through a whole court process if we deport you. Yeah. So it's easier to say yes than it is to actually say no.
Fahima, do you think the system's being cheated?
Of course.
I think the fact that we also describe them as fighting age, we wouldn't do that for any other sort of nationality or coming in that way. And there are no safe routes where you can process and understand who are they, their identity, and what they're doing. We had,
so why do they throw the ID away?
Hong Kong, we had safe routes.
When they're on the boats for him, why do they throw the passports away or the ID away? Why do they do that?
Because again, there are no safe routes for them to come in such a way.
Why do they throw the ID away?
Because that's what they know best. They don't have the kind of system that you might think. There was a system for people that came into Hong Kong. There was a system that people came, from Ukraine, and everything could have been processed, and then everything would have been done in a way where it could be assessed.
Exactly, because there are safe and legal routes, as Fahima has just identified. And those safe and legal routes are determined by the UK government. It's the UK government's right to do that, whatever colour, whatever party is in power. And the fact that they haven't created safe and legal routes from these other countries, Albania, for example, is because there shouldn't be a safe and legal route into the UK. You should apply like everybody else if you want to come to the UK. For those that want to chance their arm, that end up coming into the UK illegally, that allegedly they can go on to commit crimes, should be deported.
Yeah, and there is. I mean,
they're not coming to commit crimes. That's only 1%. Seriously, the fact that you always brush everyone. I know every crime is horrible, but the fact that you brush every single immigrant as criminals, that is wrong.
Nobody's done that.
They come here to do crime. That's what you're saying. That's not right.
There are many that have come and allegedly committed crimes.
Because that's what the incitement is in the actual protest, is because everyone is thought, from the migrants' point of view, is that they are all criminals and they all come here, and that's why you describe them as fighting age men. They are, yes, young men. Some of them are also quite vulnerable. Some of them are also, coming across because it's of the foreign policies that we also have to address, that,
so it's our fault. It's our fault.
To a certain extent, you have to actually understand that when you interfere abroad, there is consequences.
So if we're such a bad country,
it's not a bad country.
Things abroad,
it's
why
not
would you
a
want
bad
to come
country.
here?
I think we're the best country in the world.
Well, exactly. And I'd ask the question, where have we interfered abroad? Because we won't know how we've impacted on these young men or these people that come over, because they don't tell us where they've come from.
Exactly.
So it would be impossible to approve prove where we've intervened and where we've had a negative impact because we don't know where these people are coming on. They don't tell us. They chuck their
And then, of
idea
course,
away.
Well, you do know because you call them Somalis, you call them this, you call them
I haven't
that. So
called
at the
them-
end,
hold on.
not you, anyone in particular that
Well, who's
do
anyone in
refer
particular?
to the migrants. They do call them, they do call them out, they do see them, they do identify with how they look. And at the same time, it is seen because they're brown or black and come
Well, I
from
don't know if
certain
you're having a
countries.
conversation,
Then it
but
is seen
it's
as
not-
someone that
hold
you
on.
do not
It's-
want here.
That's not a conversation you've had with me. I've never referred to anyone.
I never said you, I meant you as in, everyone that probably refers to them in that way, not you particularly,
But you have
but
to
that's
admit,
how
Charlie,
it is.
that the society in general now is getting more scared by the day when they see an influx of young, and I will call them fighting age males, because I think if they are of that age and they have supposedly flee a war-torn country, they should be back home fighting for their country. But you can understand why people are scared in their own communities now.
Totally. And when you hear those kinds of stories of whether it's crime or alleged crime that takes place, of course that will create fear amongst communities. When you see the numbers of people coming into the country on small boats that just can't be stopped, that creates fear because it's a group of people that are unidentifiable that come into the country. And then you get through to the court process, you find out that our courts can't deport anybody because of fear of the
And
chicken
of course,
nuggets.
when we come to the end of the debate,
And that's
guys,
the
we will
excitement.
come back.
Illegal immigration is criminal.
It is criminal. It's been a feisty one, but do not go away. Coming up next, we've got Real World, Real People with James Roberts. Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. It's time to find out what real people are thinking out there in the real world. I've got James Roberts here. You're the Managing Director of Human Gay Male, an organisation. What is all that about?
So Human Gay Male is an organisation for gay men who reject gender identity ideology. So we believe sex is real. You can't change sex. A woman calling herself a man doesn't become a gay man if she's attracted to men. In the same way, a man who's attracted to women, identifying as a woman, isn't a lesbian.
Let me just come back on that one.
Yeah.
Let's get this straight. So if a man suddenly wakes up one morning and wants to identify as a woman, but has sexual feelings towards a woman, does that man then call himself a lesbian?
Typically, yeah. So there's been a lot of coverage around things, people might be familiar with TERFs, exclusionary radical feminists. So the women have kind of been aware to this issue for a while, particularly how it affects lesbians. There's been lots of court cases and news coverage around that kind of stuff, with men calling themselves women, wanting to go to women's changing rooms, women's sports, and kind of invading female-only spaces. So we had the court case in the Supreme Court in April that ruled sex means biology. What we've not seen as much of, although it is happening, is where the women who identify as trans, so they're calling themselves men, but they're still attracted to men, so they now call themselves gay men. So it does affect gay men too.
So that man who decides he wants to be a woman, but still wants to have sexual relationships with a woman, may argue and push back saying that she, whatever it is a woman, and therefore, if he or she does want to have a sexual relationship with another woman, then he is, by definition, getting confused here, is a lesbian.
Yeah, and it's deliberately confusing. So I think there are people who are genuinely either confused or discomfort with their
Do you think it might just
identity
be
and stuff.
just mischievous as well?
There's probably an element of that. I think there's different groups. So trans is an umbrella. So lots of the LGBTQ plus organisations and lobbyists will talk about trans as an umbrella. So it's a broad mix of people for different reasons.
Let's just go back to children, James, because that's interesting for me, because I've said this many times in my speeches and at conference last year. Children should be left to be children. If a little girl picks up a football and kicks a football around at 6-year-old, it doesn't mean she wants to be a boy. It means she just likes football. Likewise, if a little boy picks his sister's doll up and plays with it, it doesn't mean he wants to be a girl. Just leave them alone, let them grow up, let them develop, let them make their own mistakes. They'll just figure it out.
And we've had the Cass review last year. So Hilary Cass, 4-year review of all the different research that's happened over a number of years, looking at kind of the puberty blockers argument and should children who are gender confused have puberty blockers to pause their puberty. It doesn't. There's still an impact even with social transition, let alone having any kind of medication for the kids who are in this situation. Most of the studies it's limited the number of studies there are, but most of the studies will suggest 60 to 90% of those children will just grow up to be same-sex attracted. They're starting to have feelings about that.
Yeah, I get that. But when I was a little boy, I wanted to be an airline pilot or a footballer or a Red Indian or a cowboy.
Yeah.
It's just children fantasise, isn't it?
So we've got the conversion therapy bill that's kind of going to be coming into Parliament. Conversion therapy doesn't really happen in terms of gay conversion therapy anymore. So electroshock therapy, those sorts of things don't really happen. It's mostly covered, in fact, probably all covered by other legislation in terms of imprisoning someone or torturing someone and those sorts of things. There might be some religious groups that might pray over children about their sexual orientation. The problem we've got with the conversion therapy bill is that it's including trans identity. But the problem is, if you've got a child who's just going to grow up to be gay, but now you're saying they're trans, you're converting them from a gay boy to a straight girl.
Is some of this just mental health, you think?
Yeah, there's definitely a mental health crisis happening with this. I think there's an overemphasis with the children about it being all about identity rather than just letting kids be kids and tying into what the stereotypes of the sexes are. I think at the other end, or even people who are 20s and 30s, I think there's a mental health crisis with the identity. And then it's typically older men who are, as I say, autogynephiles, or it's a fetish. So, and you're free to do what you want to do in private, but it's when you're saying the rest of society has to go along with that. And
so let's ask you, James, where has all this come from? Because it's sort of sprung up, in my opinion, in the last 10 years or so. Where's it come from?
So several places over a number of years. So there's an academic element to it. So queer theory, gender identity, in a theoretical debating kind of situation in academia. The breaking down of boundaries and that was kind of from the 70s. That's moved into activism. We've then had a generation or two of graduates from university who've been taught all of the kind of critical race theory, queer theory, gender identity at university, going into the workplace and then putting it into policies. We had so Stonewall, that's the largest LGBTQ plus charity in the UK, was a gay and lesbian charity.
It was.
I used to volunteer with them years ago. Were very clear.
Would you volunteer with them now?
No.
Why?
They've gone from being really clearly about gay and lesbian rights, and very clearly they weren't doing trans stuff because they recognised it was a different community with different needs. In 2015, they added the T and kind of pivoted. We got equal marriage. We kind of got most of the legislative stuff around equal rights, and they pivoted into trans. And now they don't really do stuff for gay and lesbian. They would also say, as we were talking about before, a woman calling herself a man who's attracted to men is a gay man. And a straight man calling himself a woman would be counted as a lesbian by them. So it's not just that trans and gay are different, it's their antithetical. If you go along with
it's all very complicated, isn't it? And of course, if you get it wrong when you're addressing one of these people, they're going to accuse you of all sorts of stuff, and you'd be on the internet there on these Facebook pages as transphobic, as whatever. I don't know. There's not many phobics.
Yep, and that's part of why we've set up the organisation that we have with Human Gay Male. Typically, so there's stats around men generally having fewer close friends and a network of support than they did decades ago. Gay men probably have more friends than straight men typically. But if you speak out about this, you can be ostracised. So I've got a couple of close friends that just don't talk to me anymore because they are, no, trans women are women. I'm like, but what does that mean? And what about the kids who are, like I was a effeminate little boy. We know there's a lot of lesbians who said about they were tomboys as kids.
So at what age, James, did you know you was gay?
I've probably always known, but I'd say I would be aware of it as a thing from 8, 9, 10. Having the sort of feelings about boys around then. So
Human Gay Male, when did it start and where are you today with it?
So we started in January 2024, so we've been going about a year and a half. It's just social events for gay men who disagree with all the gender nonsense stuff. I think there's a really important thing around community for gay men who already realise what's going on, but also reaching out to more gay men who are in captured organisations or leading.
And how do they get in touch with you?
So our website is humangaymail.com. We do monthly events in London. We've also now been doing monthly events in Scotland, Birmingham. We're just starting in Manchester. We did some in America. We had a big conference in January. We've got a conference coming up in next January, basically bringing like a couple of hundred gay men together to talk about what are the issues that gay men should be talking about, because everything's about trans. So there are lots of other health issues, society issues that aren't being discussed.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks. It was a great discussion, mate. And just on that note, there may be the trans community, the LGBTQ plus community may push back on that a little bit, and that's their right to do so. But coming up next, we've got right versus left. It's time for right versus left. Fahima's calmed down. Charlie's he's dealt with your bruises, ain't you, from that bruising in the first part of the show. He got a little bit feisty. But we're going to talk about Islamophobia now. I've been in hot water over this a few times. It is my thought, guys. You can agree with me or not. I think it is a made-up word. And the people that tend to use this word are Labour politicians. They're not here to defend themselves, by the way. And they do it to save their safe city seats. Now, that might sound, I don't know, confrontational, Fahima, but I think it is okay to criticise a religion.
I don't think there's any doubt that there is any, sort of ways in which you shouldn't criticise Islam. I do it. So many people do it. Not every Muslim is even religious. That's not the point. The point is this definition. And Islamophobia, again, is always made like Islamism or whatever it is not done and made by the Muslims themselves, right? So we didn't come up with these definitions. We did not come up with those terminologies. But there is Muslim hate and abuse. And just like with every other faith, including Judaism, Sikh and Hinduism, when there's something that is being said, it is, anti-Semitic, it's wrong, so rightly. Let's be consistent. But when it's something against Muslims, then it's like, we are now taking away freedom of speech. No such thing. There's just a way in which that there's not going to be a demonization of all Muslims, and again, putting us all under one banner, and also having these kinds of protections, which is the same as everybody else. I don't know what's the outrage on us not having the same as everybody else.
But we've already got laws for this, Charlie, to protect people.
I think that's the whole point. We have hate crime speech laws in this country to protect everybody. It's not about separating one particular group of people from another. We all come under the same banner of the law. In
so we should.
And so we absolutely should. There shouldn't be this two-tier system. There shouldn't be this 3-4-tier system. There shouldn't be this sort of particular protections for certain people over others. And the reason why that is because if you dare then try to raise concerns maybe about not a whole religion or race, but a particular community within a particular race or religion who have particular characteristics. For example, a subsection of Pakistani men who have committed horrendous crimes against young women and girls in this country. If you dare then speak out about it, you could be accused of being Islamophobic. Yeah. And that's a real concern, because what that does is it shuts down conversation that needs to be had or concern that people need to
It does, Fahima. It shuts down difficult conversations. And maybe if we could have had these difficult conversations 10, 15, 20 years ago, the problem we've had with the rape gangs in the northern and Midland towns, it wouldn't have been as great, and we could have got it all out in the open. And some of these monsters could have been locked up or deported or whatever years ago.
I absolutely agree that those people, again, wherever they come from, and particularly when it was obviously raised with the Pakistani, minority groups, it's a group within a group as well, that actually were, absolutely horrendous in any particular way. I will definitely say absolutely. But when it comes to a Jew or Christian, we don't call out their race or ethnicity or their faith or anything like that. It's only because it's a Muslim. That's the difference. And the rise in anti-Muslim hate has been absolutely atrocious, just like with the Jews. And if they wanted to change their definition of anti-Semitic...
Where is this hate coming from, Fahima?
The hate's coming from, prejudice, discrimination, whatever it may be.
But what's fueling it, do you think?
I think the incitement and the fact that people are only talking about it and highlighting it in the media. If you understand psychology, there's so many things that happen out there with all different groups, but it's only been highlighted like as if it's only Islam and Muslims. And like I said, not all Muslims are even religious.
Darling.
Not all of them are. Following.
I totally agree with that last point, but there has been over a successive period of time, and we've not so long ago, we commemorated the 2005 bombings that took place in this country. Now, that is Islamist extremism, and those people do not in any way represent the rest of the Muslim or Islamic faith. But because of so many incidents in that respect, I do agree, actually, there's been an increase, in particular, a hate crime towards people of the Muslim faith. However, those people are absolutely protected, just as I'm protected, just as you're protected, just as everybody's watching is protected.
They're not protected.
They would be absolutely able to call the police if they have a hate crime committed against them. They should get the full service, just as anybody else should. But defining it as a new definition in a particular way, which I do think will stifle debate, because there are cultural tensions in our society now that we're seeing at breaking point. I think having further protections for a particular group of people that I don't think is necessary where the laws are already in place will just further erode trust in the police and our court service, and it will not bring us together as a cohesive
It's
society.
more divisive, I think,
division.
it will create division. It'll make people scared to speak out, I think.
Absolutely not. Because like I said, we criticize each other on our own. We have so many different opinions and challenges within the Muslim community. That means we're going to be also under that definition, not able to speak out against one another. So that's not true. Everyone's just scared, thinking that they cannot say it, only because if they themselves are responsible in their speech and actually speak about that particular individual, except for a whole community, and put everyone under the same sort of, definition of, being wrong and being criminals, that's what they're afraid of.
Okay, I'm going to give you a chance, both of you, a chance here. I want to give you a chance to define Islamophobia. What is it, Fahima?
Anti-Muslim. Hate.
Anti-Muslim hate?
Well, I don't think there is one, because I think what is anti-Muslim? The Muslim faith, and Islamophobia, and people of a subsection of the Islamic faith or the Muslim faith. It just doesn't.
Islam is the religion. Muslims are the ones that
Is it
practice
okay to hate somebody?
You can hate them, but you don't incite. Cause just like how when there was just recently on LBC, when someone was just reading out another person's quote, it was such an outrage.
So if I say to you, as a Muslim, Fahima, I hate you, should I be arrested?
That's not the way that people are doing it. They are doing it. There's incitement. There's public law order. Those are the things. And also putting things out there
which
to
is already
hate.
in place.
Which is already in place.
Yes,
People are
but
already
it's
protected.
not being protected for the Muslims, because again, it's not counted as that. They're saying it's free speech.
Then that's an issue.
That's the difference.
If that is happening, then
that is what's happening.
Well, then that is an issue with the
I just said.
Well, if that is happening, then that is an issue with the police not following through on those particular complaints. What you don't need is a whole new law or legal definition, which will stifle conversation, which will prevent people.
I don't think so. We will always have freedom to
speak.
speak. We will always have criticism.
Well, not under this law.
I think we will.
It's time for the yes/no quiz. I want to get my pen. It's down here. Drop it there. I've got my new book, GB News book, and please just calm it down a little bit. Fahima. She's kicking me under the table, and it hurts me. So number one, I'm going to go straight to you. She's got a big smile on the face. Is Islamophobia real?
Yes.
Charles?
No.
Straight answers. Should we be housing illegal migrants in hotels?
No.
Charlie?
Yes.
That's 2-2. Fahima, should illegals who commit crimes, these illegal migrants who commit crimes, or asylum seekers that commit crimes, be deported?
No.
Oh. Charlie?
100% yes.
I can't give you that, can I?
No, why not?
It's the yes/no quiz.
Oh, yes.
Have you learnt nothing from your previous
I've
two
said
appearances?
Yes. There was 100%.
No, it's a yes or no. You can't have a verbal tick or an extra word. They just don't get it, do they? Fahima's laughing here. So I can't give you that, mate. So Fahima's winning. 3-2. Pathetic answer.
Sorry.
So Charlie, time to claw one back. Should we leave the ECHR? Can't have that, mate.
Yeah,
There's a tick. You did a and an R. No. This is the most brutal quiz of the week. Fahima, should we leave the ECHR?
No.
Pathetic. Fahima, last question. Is Britain a soft touch?
No.
Charles?
Yes.
I can't believe it, mate. You've got 3 out of 5. Fahima's absolutely hammered you.
But one of those, I was more
No, you
enthusiastic.
was making noises.
I was
You was grunting.
enthusiastic. I said 100%.
No,
I was
it doesn't
more
matter, mate.
enthusiastic. for
You
one
say
of my
yes,
guesses.
no, and then whatever else
It's
afterwards.
yes or no. It's
Simple
designed.
rules, you know.
It's because he's worked for politicians in the past. He just cannot
They
give
can't
a
answer.
yes or no
Yeah, they can't answer.
So interesting one here. Number 2. I'm going to challenge you on this, Fahima. And I said, should illegal migrants or asylum seekers who commit crimes be deported? You said no. Why is that?
Because it doesn't fall under the Human Rights Act. And I think that they should have tougher, longer sentences, more severe sort of criminal sort of sentences, which then it doesn't matter if they were here or there. And I know you're saying about the extra cost, but at the same time, they're here. If they were legally processed and they committed a crime, it's our responsibility. Make sure that they pay for it properly here and longer.
Well, I think the issue is that people that come into the country who haven't even been processed, who allegedly go on to commit crimes, are ending up not prosecuted and they stay in the hotels, and they should be deported immediately.
Deported straight away. So, Charlie, you never really answered on the ECHR question. You was too busy making grunts and noises and just totally embarrassing yourself, mate, if I'm honest. And Fahima absolutely hammered you on that one. So
I've let you down. Sorry.
What is your thoughts on leaving the ECHR?
So I'm currently not convinced either way it will work. I'm pretty sure we've got the powers already to deport people if we want to. I found it incredible when we didn't get the Rwanda planes off the ground because of the fear.
But listen
threat
to
of
judges
issues.
in foreign courts.
Quite right. But that's why we should have overruled it. I think we would have had enough. If you get bad legal advice, get a better lawyer.
Yeah.
And I think there were too many blocks in the system. I think the Prime Minister at the time, Rishi, should have owned it to say, no, we're authorising those flights to go.
I said at
and we'll
the
have
time,
a legal
I
argument
said at the
afterwards.
time he should have made that plane go.
I absolutely agree. And I think we could have done that still within the UNHCR. I think there's just a fear that we tiptoe around some of these things a bit too much. So it doesn't really matter.
Another feisty debate. Fahima hammered you. Now listen, mate, it's embarrassing. If she beat you 5-3, you should be thoroughly embarrassed and go away and have a long, hard think about your future.
I'll have to come back.
You'll have to come back for a head-to-head with Fahima. Coming up next, we've got Last Orders with author Dan Jones. Well, that sounds like Last Orders at the bar. I've got Dan Jones with me, who is a leading figure in the European space sector. It's about time we just ignored space and got on with our own problems down here. What is there to look forward to up there, Dan?
There's a lot to look forward to in space.
Explain.
Lots of things to look forward to. We've just had the latest size and health report into the UK space sector. The UK is the best place to do space business in Europe.
Really?
Yeah, we've got over 1,900 space businesses in the UK. That's more than any other country in the world outside the United States. It's about 3 times as many as the next most populous European country.
But what is the point? I know by nature human beings are explorers. We always push ourselves, to new boundaries. What is up there?
There's all sorts up there.
Yeah.
All sorts of. I'll tell you about a few particular missions that we've got our eyes on in the UK. So there's one that you may well be aware of. It's called the Rosalind Franklin rover. That is very much an exploration mission that is looking to go to Mars and detect biosignatures, essentially looking for ancient signs of life.
Really?
And that's due to launch at present in 2028. That's when the launch window is scheduled for at the moment. If that were to detect biosignatures on Mars, that has to rank as one of the greatest scientific discoveries
But
in
what
the
will
history.
that give us? What will that do for
That will
us?
tell us about, there's strong evidence to suggest that Mars was once Earth-like. So we might be able to glimpse into our own future and then do something about it, possibly.
Like what?
Well, change the world, maybe.
Make it a
move
better
out,
place.
Make it a better place. Move out into
Are you
beyond
one of
Earth.
these geeky type, Dan, that looks through their telescope at stars and stuff like that?
I don't have time to look through my telescope. I do have a telescope.
Yeah.
I don't have time.
But we have one.
We have plenty of
We
people
have one in
the
Ashfield.
agency.
We have an observatory in Ashfield. I think it was made by a group of men many years ago. We just invested a load of money into it. I need to go there because last time I went, it was too cloudy to actually see anything. But you're
There's the National Space Centre at Leicester, which
which is not far
too far away.
from
So
me.
we've got an office. The Space Agency has an office in Leicester.
Yeah.
There'll be people there who'll be able to talk to you about that.
So the space sector in the UK, how many people does it employ roughly?
About 55,000.
Wow, I never knew that.
It's a huge sector. It's high value. It's growing. It delivers advanced manufacturing capability to the UK.
Yeah, well, explain that,
yeah.
because people will be looking at this now thinking, what's the point? I mean, what sort of...
I understand that,
Yeah,
yes.
so what's the point?
Well, there are several different ways in which space can affect life on Earth. The commercial services that the UK is very, very good at delivering, and I've said there's a lot of space businesses. The UK is the best place in Europe, probably outside the US, best place in the world to set up business, selling services such as navigation, positioning, timing, your satellite TV.
What about defence?
Navigation. Yes, well, defence is a big customer for the UK space sector. It makes up about 10% of the overall market. Yeah. Most of the sales are for the commercial markets. That's telecoms, navigation, like I said. Yeah. Defence is about 10%.
You know when they say they can, a satellite can read a number plate on Earth, is that true? Or is that just an exaggeration?
It depends on the satellite. Yeah, but slight exaggeration for the time.
So you're also an author as well?
I am, yes. I've got my new book out. In fact, I'll take the liberty of pointing that out. That's The Green Man. That's my latest novel. It came out a couple of months ago.
And that's is like a medieval thing, is it?
It is, yes. It's historical fiction. As you'd expect for somebody working for the space agency, right?
I thought you're supposed to look forward, not look back.
Oh, I did that one with that one. That's my science fiction.
Okay.
But for this one,
I've got to ask you this
all
question.
The way back.
I've got to ask you this question.
Go on then.
Have you ever seen a UFO? Or do you believe in them?
Well, so point of order, UFO means unidentified flying object. So what that means is, it could be anything.
You could have had a few one night, couldn't you? Staggering out to a local boozer and looked up, seen something.
It does happen.
It does happen. But seriously.
But it means, look, there are two schools of thought. The universe is very big.
Yeah.
And the chances of this being the only place in the universe where the conditions of life have miraculously come together to create all of this is very low, because the universe is so wildly huge. Yeah. But at the same time, there's no evidence that to suggest that there is anything that we could detect.
So do you believe in the Big Bang Theory and all that sort of stuff?
Big Bang Theory is coming under a bit of pressure.
Why is that then?
At the moment?
There's a God.
Well, that's a different question. Maybe we could pivot to that, because that is a question about medieval philosophy and theology, and that is very much about the question of faith.
That's about a monk, isn't it?
But look, science, I believe, is nested inside something which is larger. So science can be fundamental on its own terms, but the cultural conditions have to be correct in order for science to exist. So
it's right, because when you look at science, male, female, in all species, whether that's animals, humans, flowers, somebody must have come up with that idea.
Well, not come up with the idea.
It was a good idea, isn't it?
But observed.
Yeah.
So the world is a place of observation.
Yeah.
And what we do in space science or any form of science is observing the world to make sense.
We cannot live on this planet without the bees, can we?
No.
So who decided to put bees on the planet?
That's observable.
Yeah.
So the world evolves in a state of balance.
I'm getting a bit deep here, aren't I? I'm thinking about bees and pollinating flowers and stuff.
The cultural conditions have to be correct. Science didn't really exist before Descartes in the 16th century. But all of the medieval philosophers, the classics, classical philosophers from Greece and Rome, they weren't stupid people. They were highly sophisticated, very, very clever. And all the while, they were still building up their the knowledge base in order to create the conditions that science, as a method, could exist. And once that happened, the technological explosion.
So
we arrive at satellites and Mars rovers.
So we've got you behind the bar, Dan. We've got the old pint pot there and the neck oil. Do you drink neck oil?
I do. I like a pint of neck oil.
There's a chance then to impress the public. I think it's that one there. So you've got 30 seconds to pull the perfect pint.
See what we can do. All right.
So when did you decide then? Was it at school that you wanted to be, working in the space industry?
This is a disaster.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, mate. You'll not be working in the licensing.
Absolute
well, I don't bar.
disaster.
We'll forget about that. That is shocking, really. I'll give
1 out of 10?
Yeah, if that, 1 out of 10.
Yeah,
I'd stick to the day job. But at what stage in your life? Because obviously, when as kids, as boys, we were interested in space. I can remember going to the library with my grandma when I was about 5 or 6 to get a book to read about Neil Armstrong, because it was about 5 years after the first moon landing,
Apollo 11.
And so it was a new thing then. So there's that, and then you get the people who say, well, that never actually happened. It was all done in the studio somewhere.
In Teddington.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, by Kubrick. Yeah. Stanley Kubrick did it in a studio.
What do you say to people who say that?
My personal opinion is, if you've got people who believe that, there's actually nothing you can say to change their mind.
Yeah, it's probably
in fact, I'll go back to my book. That's exactly what happens in the book. Even though it's set 600 years ago, it's about belief and about clinging to beliefs, when really you should probably change your mind, because if you don't open yourselves to new ideas and information, then the consequences
you've got to be prepared
disastrous.
to challenge yourself,
absolutely,
on these things.
And it's about the dangers of ideology, essentially, and that could be in any particular.
So, but you see that though, nearly 60 years ago now, since we first went to the moon.
That's
right.
right.
Nearly 60 years.
Yes, yeah.
Why aren't we still going now?
The honest truth is that capability was lost. The Americans mothballed the Apollo program in the early 1970s, and they pivoted towards recyclable launch to low Earth orbit in the form of the shuttle program. Yeah. So that's where the pivot happened. In an alternate universe, alternate history, NASA would have continued with the Apollo program, continued with deep space exploration, and maybe would have continued going to the moon and onward to Mars.
Fascinating discussion. I didn't think it was going to be that interesting, really, but it's fascinating.
Well, I'm glad that I've convinced you.
I'm glad we booked you now. And I think we need to get you back on for a more in-depth discussion. That is pathetic, by the way.
It is settling.
Yeah, it's settling. It'd take about another hour or so, I think, after that settles. I'll give you 1 out of 10.
We'll get there.
But 10 out of 10 for the discussion.
Thanks very much.
Guys, that's last orders. Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. Been another great show. More of the same next week.